We can start. Paula, okay. So hello, everybody. Welcome to our March Forum. Today, we are very, very honored. We have such a wonderful young lady who is going to talk to us all about OT and understanding sensory needs and giving us basically really, really good advice on what works in the classroom and making sure that we give the best support to our students in the classroom. So today we're going to pick up lots and lots of practical tips. You know, I love it when we talk about what works, because for me, that's the most important thing. Everybody, there's lots of theory about how things, can, maybe this can work, that can work. But once we get strategies, put them into action and look at what happens and what is successful and how we can make things even better, that's my favorite part of the forums. So I will now introduce Miss Paula Anne Marie. She's going to be talking to us about this. Miss Paula is from Able UK. I have worked myself very closely with Able UK, and I can definitely vouch for how fantastic they are. So without any further ado, let me introduce Miss Paula. Please, just one thing. When you join, please put your mic on mute. Otherwise, you interrupt and it gets very difficult. All right. Thank you, guys. Miss Paula, all yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hamid. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Paula. I am the clinical supervisor and head of training of the occupational therapy department in Able UK. And today we will be discussing about the sensory needs and learning, on how we will be providing practical insights for you guys, for educators. So for just as a brief overview of myself, I am an occupational therapist from the University of the Philippines in Manila. And at the same time, I also took Masters in Applied Neuroscience from King's College London in UK. Apart from my degrees, I'm also certified in sensory integration, the listening program. I've also done courses in oral placement therapy. And then at the same time, under University of Southern California, I also did sensory integration and the sensory needs and challenges at school and in the classroom. I'm also certified in reflex integration. I can also train parents for positive discipline from Jane Nelson, and amongst other things, including handwriting without tears by Learning Without Tears USA. So usually we get this question: what is OT? So for those of you guys who haven't encountered this yet, or for those who are first time in being an LSA, usually OT, they ask me, is it overtime? And I would just laugh about it, because it's very easy to understand what physiotherapists would be doing. It's easy to understand what speech therapists would be doing just by the name itself. Similarly with behavior therapy, they deal with behavior, they deal with speech, they deal with physical dysfunction. So how about occupational therapy? And here, OT by World Federation of Occupational Therapists define it as a client-centered health profession concerned with promoting health and well-being through occupation. So the easiest way to understand it is that we work with clients, or we work with our patients, for them to be able to participate with the things that are meaningful for them or their occupations. Here, there are 9 areas of occupation. We work on education, rest and sleep, social participation, activities of daily living, leisure, play, instrumental activities of daily living, health management, and work. So really, Ms. Paula, you're also dealing with work. I thought you're just in the pediatric field. So this is an umbrella of profession whereby we also deal with our patients in the hospital, for those who suffered stroke, for those who had traumatic brain injury. In the community, we also serve them and work for those whereby we are doing community integration and providing work placement, pre-vocational training as well. And then at the same time, we also deal with mental health. There are also occupational therapists in such field. So in pediatrics, usually we deal with what is meaningful for children, and that would then be play, participation, leisure, self-care, care for others, and where we are at this point, which is education. So now, here are different sensory systems that very important for us. I am always showing this illustration whereby there's this picture of the brain, the hands, the lips, the mouth, the ears, the nose, the eyes. I think these are more friendly way on how you would be able to understand that sensory integration is actually happening in the brain, and they are being manifested, or the signs are being shown through our bodies, through the things that our students are showing us. And we will deal further with them as we move on in our training. Here, this is what we call pyramid of learning. So you would see in this pyramid of learning, on the red section at the top, you would see that academic learning is actually at the tip of the pyramid. You would notice in here that the foundation would then be the different sensory systems, meaning to say that these are the things that we work on as we go through the sensory motor development, perceptual motor development, and then you'll be able to target academic learning. So that is the difference with, let's say, teaching, and then at the same time when a child undergoes a therapy. So us teachers, learning support, assistants, or teacher aid, the goal is for the academic learning to be successful. The teachers do follow curriculum. And then at the same time, there are some modifications within the curriculum if a child needs further support. Thus, there are teacher assistants or LSAs. However, what we would want to understand and for us to be more knowledgeable about is that when we want to improve on academic learning or classroom participation, we don't just work on that, but rather we work on the foundation. It's like setting them up for success. So in here, you would notice that there is this illustration of a child who's spinning around, but at the same time, there's another student who's as if falling asleep already. So this is what we call the sense of movement or the vestibular sense. Vestibule is an inner organ, is an organ in our inner ear. So it's giving you the idea if you are moving up and down, backward and forward, or if you are spinning. Similarly, you can imagine yourself when you're riding a car and you could feel the zigzag movement even if your eyes are closed. It's your vestibular sensory system telling you that you're actually moving. However, in certain situations, for example, with the students that we are catering, you would notice that their sense of movement or their vestibular sense are actually quite having a hard time to be integrated, or it's not within sync. Meaning to say, they as if does they it's as if that they do not feel the movement at all. So they keep on moving around as if they are supervisors in the classroom. They keep on standing up, or they will sit down. They would be wandering around and they would be looking out through the window. At the same time, the sense of movement as well is similar to those children who appear as if they are sleeping, because what's happening is that their body needs to move a lot so that they will be able to sustain their attention throughout the day, especially in the classroom, whereby the activities are a lot more of sit down and tabletop tasks. Now, what can we do about it? So here you would see at the same time that the sense of movement or the vestibular sense is also responsible for coordination, for the sitting span, for the child to be able to exert an appropriate posture. And then at the same time, it's also correlated to reading, because when you're actually reading, you're using both of your eyes. Obviously, you are utilizing the left and the right hemispheres of your brain. And that being said, you should have the ability to cross the midline of your body. And then at the same time, it's also relevant to children who are having issues when it comes to speech. Because when you are moving your tongue, when you are utilizing such movements, you're also crossing the midline or the imaginary midline of your body, same way on how the left and the right hemispheres of your brain are talking to each other. Now, you would see in the upper right corner, there's this illustration of a guy who's sitting on that chair, but it was a very slouchy posture. So the sense of movement or the vestibular sense is also tapping the receptors on our skin, in our muscles, in our whole body. That will then be responsible for us to be able to sit down in an upright posture. And why is this important? Go back to the illustration in the previous page. When your body is leaning forward or on the side, or you're so relaxed that it's as if you are falling asleep. What does happen? Your spine is sending signal to your brain that you are ready for what? To hibernate, to sleep, to rest. That's why there are children whereby they're sitting down in the classroom. However, they are not paying attention because their brain is actually receiving information that they are ready to rest and to sleep, not ready to understand the instructions from the teachers. Meanwhile, here, this is another important sensory system, which is called proprioception. Proprioception, it's just a Latin terminology from proprio. Proprio means self. So here, it's the sense of self or being aware of your body, where they are in space. So think about joints, muscles, tendons. So this is relevant for children who are having issues when it comes to holding the pencil properly, or having difficulties to apply adequate pressure when they're writing. So you would notice that this child, now that he's holding the pencil, okay, sure. However, Miss Paula, my child, when he's writing, it's as if it's very faint that I cannot see the strokes on the paper. Or the child is writing heavily that the paper is almost tearing apart. So it's also responsible when it comes to grading of force that you would see children in the playground or during recess time. Yes, they do play with other kids, but it's as if they're always hitting or always pushing them. But you know what? Not all the time it's actually a behavior. Sometimes it's also about how they are grading their force when they are interacting with them. They just want to say hi, but they kind of push them. Or they're just falling in line, but they are not aware on the what we call body map. They're not aware on how far their arm went or how far their trunk and their body went, to the point that they're actually bumping into other children as well. So here you would see a few things that we can do at school. Let's say this is a group time. We were using a scooter board, and there's a lot of effort that is then needed for these boys to be able to push the scooter board together. There's a lot of proprioceptive input or compression and traction of joints happening on the bottom of their feet, on their ankles, on their hip, and at the same time on their knees. This one, you can do this to your students. So this is the wall push up. It's as if the child is trying to push the wall. And then at the same time, it's providing a lot of proprioceptive input or compression onto the joints of the shoulders, of the elbows, of the wrist, and at the same time of the hand as well. And in here, it's a very easy way on how to do things. Just ask the child to carry their bag. Meanwhile, for this boy, additionally, I made him wear a wrist cuff. So that's the orange gray that you would see on his wrist, just so there's additional weights that would then be there, and he will be more aware of where he is positioning his arms. This boy has the tendency to always bring his hand to his mouth whenever he's wearing these weighted cuffs. It's as if he's getting the idea of where his hands are, and it's lessening the instances of him doing so. Here, this is an activity that we can do perhaps during time that they are playing or during their free time. I've gone to one school whereby they're doing their math using bowling pins and balls. So they roll the ball. How many pins fell off? That's when they are doing their subtraction in their math subject. So this is another way on how we would be able to introduce academics as well while children are playing. So this is a very nice idea for that. Meanwhile, in here, this is just a very easy hopscotch game. There's a lot of deep pressure that can be provided while the child is jumping and doing so. It's just a matter of using a tape.
So, we got another question. How do we support a child who is seeking movement without overstimulating them? Given that we do not have an occupational therapist or we did not receive any home plan, my suggestion is to bank on proprioceptive-based activities. Here we go. Use blanket, pillow, stuffed toys for makeshift crash pad. We can also utilize animal poses, animal walks, which will then provide traction and compression onto their joints for heavy work proprioceptive input. We can also use stairs at home to transfer toys or objects from one flight of the stairs to the other. As they say, there's no such thing as too much proprioception.
I hope you enjoyed the video. So, in a gist, the importance of that is for us to understand that we can actually use anything, even if we don't actually have toys, to be able to provide it to them. Further, through our lecture, we would be able to see as well other things that we can utilize that are more of a DIY or makeshift activities. Now, what we just have to think about when we want to improve attention, the concentration of children, bank on heavy work activities, climbing up and down the stairs, even at school. A lot of schools have stairs. This could be provided during the time before or after their break or in between classes as well. Instead of using the easy route, you can make the child go up, climb up the stairs, go to the other side before they reach their classroom. And then at the same time, this could be provided as well before a very difficult examinations, just so the child would be having that feeling that they are ready for more challenges. And here, you would see it's called interoception. So just having the idea, earlier it's called proprioception. So it's usually the external sense, the joints, the muscles, the tendons. Interoception, it's having the idea of what is happening inside your body. So it's also giving you the idea if you are feeling hungry, if you're feeling thirsty. It also helps with bowel and bladder movement. And then at the same time, you know, us when we are tired, we could actually feel our heartbeat and we can notice how we are breathing. However, with our students, it's quite difficult for them to understand and to manage that just yet. So we are also working on the sense of interoception by providing a lot of activities that would target such specific areas. Let's say when it comes to bowel and bladder movements, we also work on core strengthening, the muscles of the abdominal area, and then at the same time, the chest and the back as well. For children who are having issues when it comes to toilet training. So for those of us who already did, let's say, behavior ABAT or ABA therapy or RBT. Let's say when it comes to toileting, we are working on the scheduling, the routine, but at the same time in occupational therapy, we're also working on the sense of body awareness insights or what is called interoception. So here, when it comes to sense of touch, it's called the tactile sense. So having the idea that our entire body is covered with skin, it will also be about the children who are aversive to being touched in the classroom. They don't want to join groups just because they don't want that interaction of another child bumping them into their skin. Remember earlier you were talking about those children who are bumping others or who are not aware that they're actually kind of hitting or bumping into other classmates. Meanwhile, there are students, on the other hand, that they don't like the feeling that they're being touched. Thus, it impedes their participation in group setting. There are also other students whereby they don't like arts and crafts activities, or what's happening is that they participate, but there's grimace on their face, or they become what we call dysregulated afterwards. So this is that sense or the sensory system that is responsible for that sense of touch or what we call tactile sense. Here in the picture, you would see this cute babies at the bottom. It's one great way on how to do these things by allowing their bodies, allowing them to explore. Obviously, in the classroom, we can be doing this in a more manageable way and not as messy as this one. So you would see here, there is this boy at the table sitting on a chair and doing some shapes, doing some drawings with shaving foam, and it's very easy to clean as well. And then you would see here too that this activity that is actually an oblique, so it's cornstarch, and I added some shapes, colored flowers, letters for the child to be able to take while we are working. Here, it's an arts and crafts activity, but we utilized ice cubes. This one, it's just food coloring, and we use the tip of the cotton buds or Q-tip for us to be able to utilize better grasp as well. This one, we are using therapy, so it's similar to Lego, but with different types of consistencies. As if they're doing a group session in here, they are just on their tummies to work on their core strengthening as well and the strengthening of their shoulders and the joint stability. Meanwhile, they are being provided with different types of input that would also help them to understand better what's happening to their hands. Imagine if you are utilizing gloves. Imagine yourself when you're wearing gloves. And then I would want you to do some fine activities with your hand. So while doing so, it's going to be very difficult for us to manipulate different tools or smaller objects, right? It's going to be very difficult for us as well to hold things and at the same time to feel them. So that's what's happening with kids too. We're having issues when it comes to fine motor skills or handwriting that is relevant to the sense of touch. Here, this is a very simple activity of stirring. I call it kinetic salt, but it's just iodized salt, and then we just place it on the bin. It's like 5 kilograms of salt. I also used in here weighted spoon for us to be able to make the child feel the hands more to have better control of the movement. On the other side, these are actually alphabet ice cubes. So I was teaching him the letters at this point, and I was using the ice cubes in alphabet shape for us to be able to match them. And then here,
Oh, Tanch. Wait, what letter is this?
you would see
Very good. Oh, you draw I. Us.
so I drew on his back, and then he translated the drawing to the shaving foam. It doesn't have to be shaving foam at this point. It's called graphesthesia. Graphesthesia is when something is drawn to the skin, either on the palm, on the back, without using the eye. So just using the sense of touch, so that the child will then translate that into a mental image in their brain, and then the child will then be able to express it through drawing. Now, other times we can do it as games. The child will just identify drawn on their back. They will say the name of the shape or the letter. And then at the same time, we can also do it the same way how it was in the drawing or in the video here. Meanwhile, for those children who need a so that they will be able to review color, this is a good way to do so. This is just glue, soap, and then glitters, and we placed it inside the Ziploc, and the child would just be pressing that. It's like having the visual input, but at the same time, it's as if you're using the here. It's in a different way. It's a little less messy. Kinetic sand, and we're actually drawing in here while copying different shapes and forms from the board. This is a young child who is having issues when it comes to different textures on the skin.
So amazing! Wow! Amazing, Elon! Great job! Amazing! Whoa! Strong! Amazing! Let's walk, walk, walk! Walking, walking! Amazing! Wow! Zoe! Woohoo! And now we jump! And open and walk, 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 walk. We go up the stairs.
When I did an observation in one of the schools, they do have a sensory room. In that sensory room, there are provisions for balancing activities, there are blocks, there were those kinds of crash pads and bean bags as well. So utilizing this type of input for a child who needs a lot of sensation, for a child who needs a lot of input, this would be a very good way to explore. And I think someone's microphone is on. If it's okay for us to.
Hi, I think you've got your mic on. One of you, can you please switch it off? Donabel, can you check your host so you can mute them?
Thank you so much. There. And at the same time, we can also utilize this in the sensory rooms that are then allocated by the school. It's just very easy to purchase. These are grocery materials. You can get, let's say, 1 kg of pasta, 1 kg of salt, 1 kg of chickpea, or request for the parents to give you. Now here, when it comes to auditory processing, I think it's very common, such an issue in the classroom, and it's one of the support that is greatly needed at this point when we are working with our children, when we are working with the students. You would see here there is this illustration of the boy and the girl with the headphones, but there are differences about it. So for example, here, this girl is actually my client. We are playing classical music while she is wearing the headphones because we want her to improve her ability to tolerate different types of noise from her environment. And then at the same time, it's also giving her the sense of calmness that when she's listening to classical music, she's better when it comes to her concentration when we are doing handwriting activities and her attention is actually in the task. Now, as therapists, we are working on improving their tolerance of different types of frequencies, different types of tempo, and the variety of the sounds in their environment. Using headphones, on the other hand, that has noise canceling effect, it will help the child to feel calmer by lessening that noise around him. Classically, with the noise canceling headphones, thinking about it as band-aids. When there's a wound, you put up a band-aid. It's similar to the noise-canceling headphones, whereby the child does not like the feeling of being in an environment, a social situation that is noisy. We plugged on the headphones for that. But another suggestion, as I was giving, on the other hand, you can also use music to filter the noise in the environment. Now, obviously, it needs a permission from the teacher. And as therapists, when we give this suggestion, it also reduces the tendencies of other kids or other students who are humming a lot, which is quite disruptive in the classroom. So what's happening is that, just theoretically, you would notice you will also have students, apart from them being aversive to different types of sounds, what happens is that they themselves are the ones who are humming, or they themselves are the ones who are quite noisy. So there is another concept whereby when you are humming, you could actually feel the vibration on your body that is providing you with the feeling that is under the sense of touch or tactile sense, and at the same time, the vibration on your muscles as well. There are also children who are humming, and the vibration is actually working on the back of the ear, as if they're feeling it here as well. That is quite relevant to what we discussed earlier, that is the sense of movement. So just us being able to identify what the trigger was when it comes to them showing, oh, Miss Paula, my student is stimming a lot, he's always humming or always singing, we would be able to identify the reason, and at the same time, we'll be able to provide strategies for that too.
Here are some low-cost sensory strategies that we can do.
In terms of tactile play, we can utilize dried pasta. Here are some rice grains that we just colored with food coloring. These are uncooked chickpeas, as well as kidney beans. And another one that we can try, this is actually just iodized salt that is mixed with baking soda, as if you already have kinetic sand.
There are also different types of massages that you can do with your child. One is what we call wringing, as if you're wringing clothes. Just provide deep pressure that is low and uniform on the child's skin. You may use lotion that your child likes. And the other one is what we call milking massage, as if you're milking a cow. But my tip is to use the center of your hand or your palm instead of your fingers, so that you will be able to provide deep pressure input to the child instead. You may also want to consider the tone of your voice when you're speaking, or sing some lullabies. This will actually be best if before the child goes to sleep at night. Depending on your child's preference, you can also use nature sounds or the classic white noise. You can also bank on happy yet calming classical music through speakerphone or using headphones. In terms of movement functions or vestibular input, you can also grab a blanket, place a child inside, and at the same time start with slow rocking side to side as if you are swinging a child through a hammock. Simple games such as ring around the rosy will also be nice in providing rotary or angular input for the child. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. You can also roll your child like a shawarma or a burrito using a blanket. And as a cherry on top, you can then provide deep pressure massage on the bigger muscles and bigger joints at the end. We can also provide joint compressions not only on the limbs, but at the same time on the skull gently as we are trying to compress. And at the same time on the shoulder, so you'll be able to compress the spine. Just remember, always provide proprioceptive input that is heavy work, deep pressure massage, or joint traction and compression after you give tactile-based activities. Once again, textures or anything that you do with the skin, as well as vestibular input or movement-based activities.
Thank you so much. I'm so not used to seeing myself on the screen like this one. Anyhow, the examples that I gave here, it was actually utilized by one of the learning support assistants that I'm working with. And as a feedback that I got from her, so with the student that she is being with at school, the boy gets quote unquote dysregulated after swimming. So she asked me that question, like, is there anything that I can do after swimming classes because we have Quran or the Islamic class? So the suggestion that I gave to her was that after swimming, once the child is already dressed, just get a space within the classroom in the corner, have the child lie down on their tummy, like what I did in the video, massage the back of the child with the bigger muscles. And then after so, the child can also be sitting down, and then you can provide such massage on the limbs of the child. There's also another technique that I will show you. So everybody, just I will be giving you the instructions and you can do it to yourself. So we can do a few things on the face as well, as we are working on, the different nerves of the face, and then at the same time, the different parts of the skull too. So when we are providing massage, it's best to start with the proximal area or the limbs before you go to the face. But doing it on the face will also provide a lot of calming input to the child. So what you can do is, all together, I think you can open your screen so that I'll be able to see you. All together, we can do a massage on the forehead. It's like you're providing stroke on the forehead. And then circular motion on the temple. And then we can do what we call finger walking on the face as well. Walk, walk, walk with your fingers. And then now we can also do tapping. Using the pad of your ring finger, you can also massage around the eyes, the area around the eyes. And then do some deep pressure on the cheek towards the jaw, and even earlobe tugging. You can also do it to the skull, so you can run the fingers to the skull. And you can end it by providing just compression on the body. You can do it on the shoulder and on the arms as well. Do you feel relaxed? Do you feel relaxed too? So there's something that I just want you to understand as well. So I've been telling you about the joints on the shoulders, the elbows, the fingers, the spine, but also the skull has joints. There are joints here on the coronal suture, as what we call it, and then here in the middle as well, and on the other side or the temporal area. So the reason why I'm also encouraging us to do some compressions on this skull is that the child would be able to feel more relaxed also on this part of their face and in the head. And then at the same time, with the feedback that I'm getting from the LSAs that I'm working with just very simple addition of massage on the body and on the face, it already brings a lot of difference to how the child is participating in the classroom. Now in here, I would also be discussing about handwriting. So handwriting, it's part of the educational participation, and then at the same time, it builds the foundation for mathematics, for the child being able to copy, for the child to be able to write in sentences. And when we speak of handwriting, I want us to understand that everything that we are doing when it comes to posture, to the stability, to the strength of their muscles, it will bring forth effect and improvement when it comes to handwriting as well. That's why I indicated here that gross motor skills affect fine motor skills. So those exercises that we are doing, jumping jacks, animal walk, soldier crawls, wheelbarrow walking, that is also bringing forth importance with handwriting skills. Here, there's also what we call praxis. So praxis, these are the terminologies that we are now seeing in social media, I would say. And it's very nice that we are now in more of a collaborative approach when we work with children. Praxis in pediatrics, it's just doing things that are unfamiliar for them or doing things that are more complex. That entails them having the idea or thinking process and effectively using their body to be able to perform such tasks that they have in mind. So handwriting is one of those things. Let us also remember that there is a developmental sequence on how we would be able to do so. So on the right side of the screen, you would see the pre-handwriting shapes. For younger children at the age of 1.5, at least they'd be able to draw or copy vertical line or standing line. And then horizontal line or sleeping line. 2.5 to 3, they would be able to make circle. And 3.5 to 4, they would be able to make or draw the cross. So you would see here that we are starting with pre-handwriting shapes before we even introduce letters, numbers, or more complex drawing and writing for them, because it also builds the foundation when it comes to the gross motor skills or the child's ability to do so. Similarly, when it comes to eye movements, children learn how to, for example, younger children or babies, they learn how to follow an object or track them in the vertical orientation first before the horizontal, which crosses their midline, and prior to diagonal one. Similarly, the child's midline crossing skills that are required of drawing cross or X comes later as compared to the child's ability to create or to draw vertical, horizontal, or circular patterns as well. It's also bringing importance to the capacity of the child itself. So here you would notice that at the age of 2 years, you would see the tiny hands that would then have shorter bones, the joints as well are not yet fusing together. So it's as if that their bones are then covered with fats, with muscles and skin, and lesser integration of their sense of proprioception or ability to grade force to hold objects and pulls. As the child grows older, that's when the hands itself is becoming mature. So let us also grade the things that we are giving to the child or the expectations that we have out of them, because physically, some of them are not yet ready to do things that are in an adult way. Here, this is called the developmental teaching order from Learning Without Tears. That is the company where Handwriting Without Tears is under at. Handwriting Without Tears is a program by an occupational therapist, and this is one of the approaches that we utilize for readiness in writing. You would see here, it's very similar to the pre-writing shapes, whereby we start off first with the vertical, horizontal, thus the vertical and horizontal grouping for letters are here, such as L, F, E, H, T, I, and then the transition letter, letter U. The third item in the pre-writing shapes would then be circle, right? That's why the magic C comes afterwards. So C, O, Q, G, S, and J. Then the combination of those two with the vertical, horizontal, as well as the magic C or the curved would then be the big and little curves, D, P, B. The last one actually that is being learned by children, remember the diagonal lines come later, R, K, A, M, and V, W, X, Y, and Z. So imagine, typically children are being taught either to learn how to write from letter A to letter Z, so in that succession, A, B, C, D, or for example, like myself, when I started writing at the age of 2.5, the practice that was taught to me was to write my name. So I actually have 5 names. Paula Ann Marie Gumban Valderosa or Paula Ann Marie G. Valderosa. So imagine the struggle. So imagine the struggle that I encountered whereby the first letter that I actually learned how to write would then be letter P. And then it was followed by small letter A, small letter U, L, and A. So which one do you think is easier to learn? Letter L or letter P? Letter L, right? So we can follow this type of practice for capital letters. Meanwhile, this next section, it then has the groupings for lowercase letters. So we transition after the child completes all the capital letter groups. We then move on to the lowercase letter groups. So you would see here that we do have the ones that are the same as capitals. So C, O, S, V, W, T. Then the magic C group for lowercase letters, which are then A, D, G. The transition group that we do have in here, and then the diver letters. Diver letters are called so because we start from the top going down. So letter P, letter R, letter N, letter M, letter H, letter B, and then the final group that we have F, Q, X, and Z. Now, not all children would reach that part that they would be able to write the capital letters or the small letters right away. So here, are some tips that we can utilize for children in the classroom. Here, this is the therapy that I was talking about earlier. For this boy specifically, we're using these types of activities, playing with Play-Doh, playing with therapy, using pipes or these ones with the glitters and wires during transition in the classroom or during transition of activities. For example, the teacher is finished giving lectures, then the child is having a hard time to actually wait while sitting down at the table. This is a very good way to do so. Instead of him standing, bolting, or leaving the class, the teacher would then, the LSA would then give him therapy or wires that he can engage in. This is another activity that we have. It's just utilizing shaving foam as a group task that they do. Here, this is called the wet, dry, try technique. So in wet, dry, try, you can utilize, let's say, a cutout sponge, cotton balls, or this one is just tissue. And then this is the handwriting without tears board, but you can also use, let's say, the back side of the illustration board, or just a small chalkboard piece. Wet first, and then you create the path using the wet tissue. Then you dry it down. So now that you created the path, it's similar to the ones that we are using for tracing. Then you utilize chalk pieces so that you would be able to draw on it. So it's another way on how we do typical things for us to teach children with handwriting. Meanwhile, this is more of a fun way in doing so, not using handwriting like a punishment for them to keep on writing again and again and again.
Yay!
So that boy, we practiced writing his name using his index finger, and then he did it on the shaving foam. Here, it's called the roll a dough cards. And then at the same time, we just use the putty to roll them into worms. And then the child then placed the putty to form here, number 1, and then to trace number 1 as well. On the other side, this is an entire sequence that you can also adapt when you are doing one-on-one teaching. So we utilize alphabet cards, wooden pieces. Wooden pieces then have big line and little line. This is letter I that he was trying to draw. Then on the blue mat, he's now copying it. So now the child is trying to remember the sequence on how to form the letters, not just randomly tracing over it. And then in here, this is a magnetic piece that can make the path or can build the path over the magnetic slate. And we do believe with little tools for little hands. So this is magnetic stylus. Automatically, as the child grabs it, the child is already utilizing tripod grasp. Similarly, with the video earlier on with the wet, dry, try technique with the chalkboard and chalk pieces, it would then be better that we're utilizing smaller chalk pieces so that the child will not struggle on how to grab a longer one. So here we're trying to form letter L. So it's not as if we're making a collage and just patching it. We want the child to learn as well on how big or how small it would then be, that would then be working on the letter sizing too. Meanwhile, as we try to strengthen the fingers of the child and the hands as well, this is a very good example. Once again, little tools for little hands. So this one, I got it from Daiso. These are actually crayons and on a cheaper version and cheaper scale. But at the same time, the easiest way to do it, you know, the regular crayons that you have, just break them so that the child will automatically use the tip of their fingers or their finger pads instead of wrapping their fingers around the crayon. So you see how this child automatically used tripod grasp in doing so. Here, as we were talking about posture, one very easy way for us to deal with that, for this child, he always has the tendency to lean onto the table. I just use this folder that would then make the surface higher and slanted so that the child does not have to lean forward to the table. And here in the middle, you will see that I utilized what we call duct tape or electrical tape for the child to have better idea of the foreground and background as we are trying to work on coloring. Now, coloring, there are different schools of thoughts regarding that. There are ideas whereby the child should be able to color the entire page. And if there are spaces that are free, the child should be able to draw on it, color on it as well, for the child to express their ideas. On the other hand, we can also utilize coloring, not the output itself, but as foundation for the child to learn how to control the movement of their wrist and their fingers better. And then at the same time, to help the child understand the sizing on how they are moving their hand so that when they're doing their writing, it's not going to be all over the page or that they will not be writing the letters as big as the surface. We can also use the coloring activities so that we would be able to teach the child different types of strokes. So for example, we want to teach them vertical lines. We then use, let's say, rectangle or square for the child to do it in an up and down pattern. If we want to teach the child how to do horizontal lines, we can also give them coloring. Let's say coloring a sleeping corn or an sleeping carrot so that the child would color horizontally. Circle, obviously, oranges, grapes, so the child would make the circular strokes, and then diagonal lines would then be, think about pyramid or cones that the child will use diagonal strokes or patterns when they are coloring. This is a very rudimentary way on how to do modifications on the pencil. Here, I just use the same therapy or Play-Doh for children who are having issues to grab the tip of the pencil because it's very thin. So some kids, they will use tripod grasp or quadruped grasp. However, they may need assistance because it's very thin. It makes their hands tired. Still do succeed.
T. Very good.
Here, it's just compilation of rubber bands that just kind of place them inside or through the tip of the pencil. The thing here is that us adults, we can choose a ball pen that we want and we're comfortable with. However, when it comes to pencil, we don't have that much of variety to use based on what's available in the market, so we can adapt them too. Here we use jumbo marker, but at the same time, you see how I was trying to teach the child to make the letters smaller. Thus, I used boxes. This is a whiteboard whereby the child was standing. So there's more challenge on how the child would be able to draw and write on the board. Here, these boxes are now very specific for the size of the letter. So you'd see that letter F is actually
F. Wow, very good. O. X. Fox. Amazing.
So here with the word fox, the letter F is actually a tall lowercase letter. So the box is actually taller, and then O and X, it's smaller. So the child was actually trying his best to do it. And this one, it's just a plastic folder. So it's something, once again, that is readily available. Here, what I did on the left picture, I just cut the paper into smaller pieces for the child to be able to copy. And the child was able to do so in making the letter sizing smaller. Here, this is similar to the wet, dry, try technique, but the child in here was standing, and I used the tip of we have some markers, and its tip would then be with a sponge. Picker. Very good. Letter D. These are some sitting modifications that we can provide as well. So here, TheraBand, or you can use rubber band, place it on the feet of the chair, and the child can place the bottom of the feet in there so that when they need to fidget, they don't have to stand up. You don't need to do a lot more activities. They can do it while they are sitting down. You know, even in adults, a lot of adults, you notice when you're attending conferences or when you're attending lectures, they're actually fidgeting with their legs too. They're moving that while they are sitting. Here, this is an inflatable disc. So some children, when they're having a hard time to position their body better on a chair, we can put this red and that blue picture on a chair or in the seat, and then it will help them to move around or to wiggle as they need to, but they're still sitting. Some flexible seating modifications here. I just asked the child to sit on a ball while they're working on tabletop activities. Obviously, this needs permission from the teacher or from the school. And when I am recommending this, I always ask for their approval in doing so. And here are some of the techniques that can be provided. Apart from changing the seating placement, we can also try different types or different ways on how to do writing activities, post it on the wall, or use a standing board. Some of us LSAs, we're not only working in the classroom, we also go to the house of the child, or to do some sessions at home to carry over the things being done in the classroom, or to carry over the instructions of the therapists during therapy time. Here you would see that the girl, while we are doing handwriting activity, I just asked her to stand on a surfboard just so she would have an idea where to keep her body in space. But at the same time, the movement challenge for her to balance herself improves her concentration. If you will look closely, I utilized two lines or double lines when I was asking her to do some copying activities. So we can move on from using smaller pieces of paper, strips of paper, boxes, double lines, before it can be translated to blue, red, blue lines, or four-lined notebooks that are commonly used at school. If you noticed, I did not have to give the child prompts or instructions. So keep writing, or um, focus on your work, because the ability of the child, or opportunities for the child to give himself that sense of movement or to move around a little, was already provided to him beforehand. So the instructions were actually lesser from my side. Here, as we speak about seating modification, arts and crafts activities were also done while on the floor, but just using a tray. Meanwhile, this boy, he was doing some handwriting activities. Now, on the right side, you would see therapy. It's just very important for us to understand what they are, and they're actually graded based on its color. So the lighter color would be softer, the darker ones would then be, I would say, stronger and thicker. The black one, it's going to be very stiff, actually. Here, some fidget toys that you can prepare ahead of time. There are some clients or some students that you have who are visually seeking as well. They always want to watch things that are moving or spinning that would then lose their attention. I have LSAs that I'm working with. Some of them will then have a fanny pack or a body bag, and then fidget toys are actually inside, readily available to be given to the child, needed redirection or during transition in different classroom, or while the child is sitting and waiting for the next teacher to change. Here are some automotor activities that we can do for kids, or we can provide. These are some chewy tubes, or at the same time, the ones that are being used in oral placement therapy. It can also be provided for children who have the tendency to bite on their shirt or to bite on other kids as well. I have a client, he likes to play with someone's hair, and then he'll put it in his mouth. So by providing the child the input that he needs, so these are one of the recommendations that I am suggesting. Meanwhile, here it's weighted vest. I used two companies so that I'm not biased. You can order from Amazon or wherever you want to. But the point here is that sometimes children would need a lot of input onto the bigger joints and bigger muscles of their body. The illustration that I utilized earlier was with a boy whom I asked to carry his bag instead of using it as a trolley. Here, weighted vest, or you can use some bean bags or just different types of grains. Put it on the pocket of the boy or of your students, inside the jacket, inside their shirt, or inside their pants, just so it's going to be a bit heavier, so they will have better awareness of their body. Here, the reason why, yes, smaller bean bags can also be placed inside. And then here's another one. I noticed that there are a few sensory rooms at school as well, but they don't have input for light or for visual stimulation. So this, I just utilized a small plastic ball and then the torch of my phone. And then I just used it to illuminate light while the room was a bit dimmer. So some kids, they need some time for themselves to regulate, not in a crowd, not in a classroom. Thus, a lot of schools now are encouraging to use a smaller room for regulation or sensory room, or therapy room that they do have there, we can also utilize that. Here, as I was talking about a boy who goes to a school and always hums. This is a Z vibe, and I used it on the areas of the face, such as the jaw, the cheek, around the mouth as well.
One, two, three, four, five. And around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So this boy doesn't want his face to be touched to begin with. However, with me, because I'm always starting with massaging him on his body, on his face, he's then allowing other people to feed him. So this is actually a struggle at school as well. When he's being touched even on the face, he cries or he pushes them. Now, for children who are higher functioning, you would see here that there's this illustration. It's as if it's a schedule. So for children who can read, schedule actually helps them to feel that they are in control of what's happening because they're being able to anticipate what's next. You can also utilize pictures or illustration that would then be symbol of that. This is a good preparation for those who are using, let's say, AAC, or when you're using PECs for those who have background in ABA therapy, utilizing PECs as well. You can use the same way on when you're trying to set the expectations of the child through visual schedule, because it will also help in terms of priming them on what is coming next. This is also a very good way for those children who are having difficulties to adapt to change. So some children with autism or OCD, or some children who are just having difficulties to look forward to unexpected scenarios. Having them or having yourselves write down the schedule or use pictures will also be beneficial for them. In here, this is like a rolling dice and then some sensory breaks. But obviously, I connived or I created the activities that are readily available as breaks. So whichever color the child chose or however number there would be a specific activity that would then cater the child's needs. This is also nice for those who are already older and understand instructions. They don't want to feel that they are being treated like babies. You know, we have those clients as well. We have those students. Meanwhile, here, this is a very nice regulation-based activity. Once again, higher functioning, understanding that they're not supposed to drink the bubbles, but rather to blow on it. So remember the concept of interoception that I was talking about earlier. Some children are having a hard time to do breathing, proper breathing pattern, and it actually adds more to their dysregulation. Here, it's an alphabet yoga animal poses. Meanwhile, on the other side, you would notice that these are very direct instructions, even with time as allocated, as we are working on calming activities too. So we can give it a try all together. So the one that is in the middle, you can trace around your entire hand with your opposite pointer finger. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Last one, inhale, exhale. So instead of using common terms like, oh, relax, or it's okay. So we can also use different ways on how to regulate them. Other ways on how to do so, for example, in here, I have a client, she's already 18 years old. When she gets overwhelmed of what's happening around her, one great way to redirect her is to do this activity. Name 5 things from the 5 following categories. Okay, name 1 feeling. Then name 2 animals, name 3 foods, then shows or the things that you like about yourself. Or you can also do things that are then relevant to the sensory systems. Name 5 things that you can see. Name 4 things that you can hear right now. 3 things that you can smell. 2 things that you can taste. 1 thing that you can feel. So the child is bringing back the awareness to themselves while being redirected to whatever it was that was disturbing them. So for this client in particular, I've had encounters with her getting disturbed when the classmate is noisy, or even when the table is a bit wonky, she gets distressed already. And then in here, this is called the response to intervention model. So not that Miss Paula loves triangles, but this is the official one that is being utilized with different tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. This is one great way on how you'll be able to remember how to implement such strategies and interventions in a classroom setting. So remember that Tier 1 would then be general core instructions. Tier 2 will then be targeted interventions, and Tier 3 will then be intensive interventions. So how do they look like? So usually, if you look in here, in terms of academics and behavior, Tier 1 will then be a majority of the students, let's say 80% of the population of the school can implement this. How does it look like? I have a client, she's quite behind her gross motor skills, but she is in a regular classroom with an LSA. How did the teacher implement general instructions or core instructions? And that would then involve more students or almost everybody in the classroom. During their PE, they did animal walks because that particular student can perform animal walks and they want her to feel the sense of belongingness. Thus, this type of approach was implemented. Meanwhile, Tier 2 or targeted intervention. So some students who could also be at risk could be included in here. As a simple activity that I am noticing now in the classroom, there are small groups whereby they could be categorized based on their academic skills, but at the same time, it could also be a subcategorization based on their sensory functioning. It may not necessarily be about academics. It could be about writing. It could be about their regulation status or their ability to make themselves adapt to their environment, or it could be based on their socialization skills as well. I've also worked with a teacher whereby she's doing body system. So my child or my student who goes to that classroom would need help from an LSA, but we're trying to fade the support of the LSA through supervision. Meanwhile, it's the other students who's giving the child the instructions after the teacher has done so. Also, this body or these friends that are specifically allocated for the child also encouraged him to socialize with peers. So this is a very nice way on how to do targeted interventions in a small group way. Meanwhile, obviously, there are also intensive interventions whereby, let's say as an LSA, we do some pull out or we do some very specific and intensive way on how we are teaching our students. So this is when the intensive intervention comes in place, or the Tier 3 level.
Yeah, sorry, Paula, I'm going to interrupt only because I'm so mindful of the time. It's just that others might have to go off.
This is the last slide.
Normally stop 10 minutes to 6 so that we can get some questions. Is this the last one?
Yes, this is the last one.
Okay, all right. Okay.
All right, so this is just the same illustration on how you can actually do a review for yourselves. This could actually be very good too when you're working with therapists. So for example, you have issues and challenges that you are facing with your students. So let's say the child always covers the ear when it's very noisy. What could be an individualized approach for that? Use headphones. What could be a targeted group? Maybe there are a few children that would be in the sensory room and they will be listening to classical music, which is very nice. One universal approach on how it is to be done. There are some classrooms we have requested that instead of them using the speakerphone, they will then be, or the very loud alarm sound, they will then be using like a doorbell type of sound when it's time to tell the kids that it's recess already. So those very simple approaches can also be utilized for your child, small group, and at the same time in the classroom. All right, Ms. Harmeet, if there's any questions that we have, maybe we can entertain a few.
Well, okay. I'm not going to entertain too many only because of the time, but somebody is asking about light and sensory. She says one of her students looks at lights. How would she manage that?
Okay. So when we look at that, I'll go back to the pyramid of learning. So we'll just have a very good understanding of it. When we look at, let's say, the child loves to look at lights, or the child likes spinning objects. One good strategy to do so is when I showed the picture of us having, let's say, the sand or the oil timer, the ones with the dripping or falling colors. That's a great one. Or you'll have, let's say, a child with different types of cards, colored cards, or books that are in your bag that you can easily give to the child when the child is doing so. But at the same time, the reason why I showed you this illustration is that the sense of visual, or for a child who may be liking or seeking visual input, it could also be a reason or just a manifestation of dysregulation. So a child who likes to watch different types of things that are moving, or children who are lining up toys, it's a manifestation of them being dysregulated and trying to organize themselves. So us working on their sense of regulation will also help reduce the visual seeking tendencies. Once again, we can do strategies that are very specific for the sense of visual, and at the same time, working on the general regulation of the child will also reduce the visual seeking tendencies, be it movement, be it sense of touch, or sense of hearing as well.
So you can actually highlight this if the child is doing any therapy, highlight this to the therapist and she can guide you. Now, some schools don't allow physical touch. This, yes, you're right. The safeguarding policies are there in place. However, in cases like this, you can speak to your inclusion leader and ask them how you can get around this. So either you may get consent from the parent, or the school may approach the parent and ask if this is possible to be done. Just get it in writing.
Yes, and consent specifically with the massage at school, because it could also be under the child abuse policy. We can specify there that there could be recommendations for different types of touch, massages on the face and on the limbs as well. And then at the same time, when it comes to safeguarding policy, when it comes to touching kids, it's actually about not just touching them when it comes to massage, but getting dragged, getting pulled, or some children who are being touched inappropriately. So specifying the specific activities that you will be doing will also provide safety for you. I agree with Ms. Harmita.
Yes, thank you. All right, I will discuss that, Nikita, about the slides, but we are now starting to share all our LSA forum videos on our YouTube channel. So this will also be shared there. So you can always go to the YouTube channel. I think, Donabelle, you can share the links because they will all be there.
Yes.
Now, a lot of you are still always constantly writing to me to say that you are looking for jobs. Please carry on writing. We will keep your CV on file. Now, as a special, because of what's been happening, all of you, I don't know if all of you know, but we have an amazing LSA course that we have designed. It's a 20-module course designed to give you a bigger understanding and an overview of what LSA's training is all about, what the expectations, understanding some basic needs. So we are going to have a special offer just for this forum. It is going to be 150 dirhams instead of the 250. Please register if you are interested. Click on the link there. It will take you to where the LSA thing is overview. Have a look at the modules. If you are interested, email us at info@Incluzun. Donabelle, can you share the link as well to where they can, or the number below? So if you share all of this with us, we will put you together. It is only for this forum. So please, we are here together to educate and to learn together. Now, I was having a very interesting conversation with somebody who has highlighted that there is a lot of people who are claiming to give trainings and to say that they are certified in doing this and they are certified in doing the trainings. please be very, very mindful and careful when you approach somebody or somebody approaches you for, saying that they can give you the training for whatever is required. Don't fall for all of these things without checking the background of whatever it is that you want to take part in. Be very mindful of that. Thank you, Paula. That was astounding. It was like a whole lesson in OT. You got us to understand that. And most importantly is the strategies. It's given, I think, all of you, food for thought and thinking, I really need to sit down and think about what I'm doing with my student. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful week ahead. Please keep safe. Follow the protocols of whatever is required. As Incluzun, we are constantly sending support to our LSAs. We are telling them what's happening. We are supporting them with our stuff that we are putting together. Keep safe, everybody. If there's anything you need, you can contact us, info@incluzon.com. Please message, copy that information there, get in touch with us, and we will direct you on the next steps. Thank you so much, Paula. Goodbye, everybody. Bye.